There might not be a book in the Bible that's more misunderstood than Revelation, and rightfully so. There's some downright weird stuff in Revelation. But the Bible is weird, and that is, in my opinion, a thing to be celebrated. So in this video, I present what I think are the 5 most important things for you to know about this weird text. We start not with number 5, but with a bonus. Then we'll jump straight in and work our way down from 5 to 1. The bonus is that this book is called Revelation, not Revelations, and there's no antichrist in the book. The title is in the singular, Revelation, not the plural, Revelations. And despite the common conflation of the beast and the number 666 that's associated with it, Revelation does not link the beast and its number to an antichrist figure. This word doesn't appear anywhere in the Apocalypse. That is a later interpretive move. And another fun fact, the word Antichrist only appears in 2 New Testament texts, 1 John and 2 John. But on to our top 5. Number 5, Revelation is an apocalypse. Revelation is one of a few texts in the New Testament that tells us exactly what it is from its beginning. The Gospel of Mark calls itself a gospel, the Gospel of Matthew calls itself a book, and Revelation calls itself an apocalypse. It is the very first word in the Greek of the book, and it's usually the second in English translation, following the definite article the. The word apocalypse literally means unveiling, revelation, or disclosure. So apocalypse and revelation are synonyms of one another. The last book of the New Testament gets called both, and they mean the very same thing. However, using the word apocalypse, in my estimation, more closely aligns this book with the ancient genre to which it belongs, the apocalypse genre. Apocalypses were a known genre to people in the ancient world, and as a known genre, they possessed elements that were both fixed and flexible. That is, if a text possessed several of these features, it was recognizable as participating in that genre. Ancient apocalypses, like portions of Daniel, 4 Ezra, and 1 Enoch, possessed these features. An individual from the ancient past, who's called a seer or a visionary, had an otherworldly vision, revelation, or journey. Often this vision was set in the past and would predict the past as if it were the future, which is called ex eventu prophecy. It'd be like me writing an apocalyptic vision of George Washington, in which he predicts events like the Civil War, World War II, or the COVID-19 pandemic. Following the prediction of the past, the vision predicts the relatively near future from the audience's perspective. These predictions and visions come in the form of rich and symbolic imagery that needs to be interpreted by an angel or an otherworldly being who might also serve as a guide for the seer's heavenly journey. Revelation contains some, but not all of these elements. It also Christianizes or Jesusifies many of them. In Revelation chapter 1, the seer, whose name is John, is given a vision from God through an otherworldly intermediary, who is first called an angel or messenger, and then, once the figure is described, appears to refer to Jesus. That revelation is attributed to John makes it unlike most other apocalypses, which are pseudepigrapha. That is, they are falsely attributed to figures who did not actually write them, figures from the ancient past. The figure from the ancient past is a literary device that's part of this genre, and Revelation breaks from this convention. However, Revelation does contain a boatload of symbolic and trippy imagery that's part and parcel of the apocalypse genre. Most apocalypses use this symbolic and bizarre imagery to do one of 2 different things: give the seer a tour of heaven or a peek behind the curtain of history. Revelation does both of them. In chapter 4, John's given a view into the heavenly throne room, in which there's a lamb who is the only one who's able to open a heavenly scroll. As the various seals of the scroll are open, there's 7 of them, calamities happen on earth. These are all described in Revelation chapters 6 through 8. Then John sees 7 angels who blow 7 trumpets in heaven, which similarly bring more calamities to the earth in Revelation chapters 8 through 11. Then, beginning in Revelation chapter 12, Revelation has visions of different human and non-human creatures. A woman with the sun and moon, a 7-headed, 10-horned great red dragon, a leopard, a leopard-like, seven-headed, 10-horned beast that has bear's feet and a lion's mouth. There's a second two-horned beast from the sea that speaks like the dragon speaks and has the number 666. There's a lamb in heaven. There's one like a human riding a cloud. There's the whore of Babylon who rides upon a beast, and a white horse with a rider. The accounts of these human and non-human creatures take up a good portion of the second half of Revelation and are meant to symbolize several different entities. Often what the creatures symbolize are hinted at, but not stated directly. This is very similar to what happens with Daniel chapter 7, where an angel interprets the vision of 4 beasts for Daniel, saying they are different kingdoms, but doesn't directly state which kingdoms the beasts are meant to represent. And so Revelation contains many of the features that are characteristic of apocalypses. A seer, though not one from the distant past, has a trippy vision in which both are given a privileged glimpse into heaven and are also shown what's going on behind the scenes of history in highly symbolic and vivid imagery. Number 4. Revelation was written to encourage people who were suffering in some way. Another feature of apocalypses that has much to do with the context in which they are created is that they are most often literature of crisis. We see this reflected throughout Revelation in different kinds of ways. In Revelation chapter 2, for instance, the church in Smyrna is said to be facing some kind of suffering at the hands of those who say they are Jews but are not. In Revelation chapter 17, it said that the whore of Babylon is drunk on the blood of the saints, those who follow Jesus. This implies that the Roman Empire, which the woman is meant to symbolize, is causing Christians to suffer and perhaps even die. There are several other places where suffering, hardship, and crisis are implied in Revelation. And it appears that the audience of Revelation is facing trouble on 2 fronts. First, from Jewish synagogues, or at least in the case of the church in Smyrna. And this may be because the early Christian movement is beginning to move farther outside what counts as the realm of Judaism, insofar as it's starting to articulate Jesus' identity in terms that are normally reserved for the one aniconic Jewish God, whose name is Yahweh. On the other hand, they seem to be facing problems from their pagan Greco-Roman countrymen, especially if the early Christian groups are made up largely of Gentiles or non-Jews. When they convert to the Jesus movement, they stop worshiping the pagan gods, and they likely stop attending civic events that featured a heavy dose of polytheistic religion. Doing so disrupts the Roman way of things, and these groups become an easy scapegoat when things don't go well. If you would only worship the gods rightly, and if you would participate in the normal order of city life, then the gods wouldn't be so upset with us and things wouldn't be going so wrong. This is likely why we see so much about buying and selling and how it relates to the beast and the beast's mark in Revelation chapter 13. Number 3. Revelation was written by someone named John in the second half of the 1st century CE, either the 60s CE or the 90s CE. These are the 2 main options for when Revelation was written, and there are more than these 2. Which one of these 2, however, one favors depends on a number of factors, but a big one is the identity of the beast, whose number is 666 in Revelation chapter 13. Revelation 13:8 indicates that the number 666 refers to a real person. The phenomenon of referring to a person by a number is called gematria. In the 1st century context, every person's name had a numerical value that was easy to be calculated because each letter in their name had a number associated with it. So, if you knew someone's name, it's easy to calculate their number. You simply take the numbers of their letters and add them all up. But it's difficult to go the opposite way because any number of combinations could make any sum. These 2 graffiti show the phenomenon of gematria and how it can be used to sort of obscure someone's identity. The writers of these 2 graffiti indicate that they each love a person whose number is 351 and 731 respectively. We have no way to know the names that are associated with 351 and 731. If we had a list, say, of 5 different names, and we were told that their number was 351 or 731, then we could probably figure it out. We would just take those 5 names, add up the letters in each name and see that one of them equals 351 or 731. But it's almost impossible to go the other direction, to just have the number and not have the letter or the name. And this is what some have done. They've proposed different names to see if we can't figure out who that sum number 666 refers to. The two best options are the emperors Nero and Domitian. Though even with these two names, it requires some fancy number work to be able to get to them. For Nero, if you take the title and the name Caesar Nero in Hebrew and add up its numbers, you can get to 666. But if you take the common abbreviation for Emperor Caesar Domitian Augustus Germanicus, which referred to the later Emperor Domitian, and this abbreviation was regularly found on coins, you can also get to the number 666 by making the sum of this equation here. So these have become the two main options for the identity of the beast in Revelation 13:8, and the two reigned in several decades apart from one another. Nero's reign was from 54 to 68 CE, and he was famous, or infamous, for persecuting Christians in the city of Rome. Supposedly, he sometimes used Christians as human torches to light his opulent gardens. Nero also famously blamed Christians for a great fire that raged in Rome for 6 days, though it's likely the case that Nero started the fire to clear space for his new palace. The Emperor Domitian was not as well known for persecuting Christians, so he may not fit the bill with respect to the suffering that is alluded to throughout Revelation, but Domitian was known for his self-aggrandizement, even commanding that he be worshipped. That's also a characteristic of the beast in Revelation chapter 13, and would seem to fit Domitian better than it would Nero. The short of it is that most New Testament scholars think that Revelation was written either during the reign of Nero in the 60s or the reign of Domitian in the 90s, and the number 666 is referring to one of these two individuals. Because Revelation loves numbers, numbers aren't just used in Revelation 13. It's not just the number 666. Numbers appear throughout the apocalypse. And the author of Revelation seems to have some favorite numbers, probably because of these numbers' symbolism. The number 7 characterizes completeness, so good things normally come in sevens. The lampstands and stars that the otherworldly Jesus figure stands among in Revelation chapter 1. The 7 letters that are written from 7 angels to 7 churches in chapters 1 through 3. And those 7 bowls, seals, and trumpet, they're going to cause trouble for those who are troubling Revelation's audience. The number 12 has resonances with the number 12 from the 12 tribes of Israel in the Hebrew Bible, as well as Jesus' 12 disciples. If you add those two together, you get 24, which is the number of elders that sit on the thrones in heaven in Revelation. 6, unlike 7, is a number of incompleteness, and so for this reason it's associated with the evil one or the beast. Some claim that because 6 just means an incomplete number, the number of the beast is really just symbolic of any great and usually imperial evil, and it doesn't necessarily refer to one single emperor or one single figure via gematria. And finally, large numbers, 1,000 and 144,000, are also featured in Revelation. The first is the amount of time that the dragon, who symbolizes the devil and Satan, per Revelation 20, verse 3, that's the amount of time he's bound for. The second is the total number of people that are faithful to God in Revelation, and appears to be the sum of 12 times 1,000. All of this to say, numbers appear prominently throughout Revelation and are usually used in a symbolic kind of way. Number 1. Revelation has been interpreted 3 different ways, as predicting the future, as symbolic, and as historical. The numbers 1,000 and 144,000 have been at the center of debates of how Revelation ought to be interpreted. They're especially important for those who understand Revelation to largely be about predicting the future that has not yet happened from our own modern perspective. This mode of interpretation was especially popularized by 2 novels, or rather one novel and one set of novels, in the 20th century. These were Hal Lindsey's The Late Great Planet Earth and the Left Behind series by Tim LaHaye and Jerry B. Jenkins. These authors took the predictive manner of interpreting Revelation and made it exciting by projecting it into a novelistic reality that readers, and then film watchers, could imagine. This mode of understanding Revelation takes the symbolic language and understands it to refer to things that have not yet happened. It is particularly concerned with what will happen when the 7 seals are opened, the 7 bowls are poured on the earth by the 7 angels, and the 7 trumpets are sounded. For those who read Revelation this way, a premium is placed on the ability to associate what's described in the apocalypse with what's happening in the real world. Revelation serves as a roadmap for how the painful and chaotic end times will progress before Jesus' peaceful reign begins. The second main approach rejects the idea that Revelation is meant to describe real-life future events. In this view, Revelation is not about decoding or predicting what is exactly going to happen in the future. Instead, Revelation is relevant at all times in all places because there's always a battle between good and evil, a battle between heavenly forces and evil forces going on. In this reading strategy, Revelation is relevant in all times and in different kinds of ways. The text can be used to understand how history has progressed in the past and how it might in the future, because the apocalypse deals with phenomena that are timeless and universal. The final reading approach, and the one that I prefer, attempts to primarily read Revelation in its own historical context. The approach is primarily interested in how Revelation functions in its first century world. What is unveiled in this approach is what is happening in the author's world, not necessarily in ours. This approach also most strongly places Revelation in its native ancient literary category or genre, apocalypse. But because apocalypses are so often concerned with cosmic conflict and the ways in which God intervenes in times of crises, there's a way in which this historic approach to reading Revelation also makes room for reading Revelation as symbolic in other time periods that move beyond the first century. Especially when read as Christian scripture, the historic approach to reading Revelation can simultaneously understand the apocalypse as being relevant in its first century historical context as well as our own modern context.